Hello and welcome back to the Opera Euro Rapid online tournament, to another very exciting game. This is between Daniil Dubov and Magnus Carlsen. If you remember, Dubov is the player that beats Magnus Carlsen actually very often. In the previous edition of the Magnus Carlsen tour, he was the one who actually knocked out Carlsen in the knockout phase. So yeah, I've actually all set up for a very interesting matchup. So a bit of the background is that Carlsen actually just lost to Ding Liren in the previous round. He's still doing alright in the tournament, but he really needs to avoid losing 2 in a row. And as for Daniil Dubov, to really come back and fight for the promotion places, he now needs to beat Magnus Carlsen. And we will see that this is actually how the game goes. It's a very complicated middle game, and then towards the end we will see some very exciting things actually happening, that it will feel like a bit of reverse roles. But we'll get to that point. So let's just get started with the game. So Daniil starts with d4, d5, c4, c6. So Carlsen opts for the Slav with the c6 order because so Daniil Dubov is a known big expert of the Catalans, so knight f3 and g3, and we will actually see that even though Carlsen did not play e6, he played the c6 order. Dubov will be able to get some sort of Catalan type of position, because after knight f6, knight c3, e6, Dubov still plays the move g3. And now comes a knight d7, bishop g2, bishop e7, castle, castle, b3, and we are basically back to sort of a closed Catalan opening. b6, bishop b2, a5. And here comes the first move that's definitely of the preparation of Daniil Dubov, e4. So normally in this structure, it's really e4 is the move that white would like to prepare and make. However, now you are just sacrificing this pawn. And the point is, if black takes, it's usually better to take with the knight. Then white takes, and here comes knight e5. Now basically a double attack, attacking this guy, attacking the e4 pawn. And if you take here, there will be no way to defend the e4 pawn. The white bishop takes, and then this long diagonal is open for the white bishop. So this is probably a little bit better for white. So for that reason, Carlsen actually did not take, played the move bishop a6. And here comes actually the novelty. Dubov plays knight e5 nevertheless. Here comes rook c8, rook e1. And where we can see that actually white did manage to reach what he wanted in the opening. He has all his pawns, so c4, d4, and e4 in the middle of the center. So he's got a very good central control. So now black Carlsen decided to take on c4, and after knight c4, well, this is very clear that white is doing better. He's got the two central pawns, full control over the central. These knights are looking beautiful, two fianchetto bishops. So there is no doubt that white has actually quite a sizable advantage. And well, Magnus Carlsen decides that this position is actually quite bad. So he sort of goes for let's say desperate measures, and he does give up his bishop. Bishop takes c4. And the whole point is that after b takes c4, he would like to play on the dark squares and plays the move e5. So the point is that in the white camp, after giving up this c4 knight and also making this pawn come to c4, the dark squares could be weak, the b4 square could be weak, and especially the c5 squares could be weak. So if these pawns are somehow exchanged, the d4, e5 pawns are somehow exchanged, and the c5 square will be a nice outpost either for the bishop or maybe even for the knight. So now white continues with knight e2, and after bishop b4, rook f1, comes rook e8 and queen c2, and actually white's plan is very straightforward. He already has 3 pawns in the center, but he would really like to put the 4th pawn in the center with f4, and then the black position would just collapse immediately. White would just roll over Carlsen in the center. So now black really needs to do something. So he plays the move queen e7, trying to put further pressure on the e4 pawn. So if black can take on d4, then the e4 pawn would be hanging. But the problem with this queen e7, then now your bishop is actually running out of squares. And white has a nice way to trap this bishop, a very common tactical thing. I'm pretty sure that Carlsen actually did not overlook this opportunity, but he thought that this is his best chance. So the move Dubov plays is simply c5, and the point is that now there's no square for this bishop, and a3 is going to trap the bishop. So now the Carlsen needs to somehow give up the piece. And well, probably the best way, this is how he did it, he took on d4. Now you cannot take back because then your c5 pawn would be hanging, so white needs to trap the bishop. Sorry, he didn't trap first. So now first you can actually take on b6. That's a better way to do it, because black really needs to handle this guy. So after basically he plays c5, now finally sacrificing his bishop, because the b6 pawn is going to be taken. Now the d4 pawn is protected, but now you're fully giving up your bishop. Here comes a3, and the dark squared bishop is gone. So now comes knight b6, a takes b4, and a takes b4. And now let's stop for a bit. So let's evaluate the position. So it's very clear that white does the piece up, has the piece. So that's good. But you really need to watch out for all these pawns. And the plan of black is to try to push this c4 pawn to c5 pawn to c3. So first c4 and then c3, and that would be actually very close to the promotion square, but would also just kill this dark square bishop. So white really absolutely has to make sure that the c pawn cannot move forward. So let's see how Dubov does this. And as for the time situation, actually Dubov had a bit of time advantage, like around 6 minutes against 4, something like this. But the players still get the 10-second increment, which is actually quite generous. So in a position like this, maybe it's still not a huge time trouble. So now comes knight f4, the d4 pawn is under attack, so you cannot push yet. Now comes queen d6, black would like to push. But now comes rook d1 to make sure that you can still not yet push, putting another attacker on the d4 pawn. Now comes knight bd7, the d pawn is still not overprotected, so c4 is not a threat. You can just put your rook on c1. Here comes queen a6, and now comes knight d3. So now if you were to push, then the b4 pawn is hanging. And actually here is a nice tactical motive. So knight d3 seemingly giving up this pawn. So if black takes, then now you can take on e4, rook takes e4, and here the winning blow is actually very nice. So if you want, you can actually stop the video and try to find the nice way to win the game. So the whole point is that now you actually the white queen can discover the discover attack could go against this rook. So white can start with the move rook knight takes c5, attacking this guy, so black needs to take with the knight. And here white can take with the bishop on d4, and even though at the moment black is simply up a pawn, there is a huge pin along the c file. You cannot move your rook because then this guy is gone, knight, because then the c8 rook is gone. Also you cannot move the knight because then the e4 rook is also getting unprotected, and simply you're threatening to take on c5. And if black plays the move something like queen a5, then, well, the trick is that if you take the knight, then after rook e5, now white can try, black can try to use this pin, but the simplest is to win after queen a5 is to actually take just the rook, and realize that if black takes back, then there is some back rank issue. So for this reason, actually, Carlsen started with h5, so making sure he does not run any issues on the background any further. But here, and after h3 actually, so now Dubov actually did sort of blunder the e4 pawn. So now you can actually take on e4, and the whole line I just showed you now does not work after this inclusion, because you can really play the move queen a5 and bishop c5, rook e5, and black is actually doing alright. So it was possible to take on e4, but there are of course other moves black can play, knight f4, again double attack against these guys, and the game still goes on, but black managed to just snatch a pawn. So that would have been a nice idea, but in the like undertaking time, Carlsen did miss this opportunity. He plays the move b3. So the point is, if you were to take on b3, then there is c4 double attack. So of course Dubov does not take. He plays the move queen c4 and try to really blockade all these pawns, and then eventually win the c5 one, maybe bishop e3 later, and win that pawn. So now comes takes, knight takes e4, and now we are liquidating to an ending. So here, nice move, bishop takes d4. The point is, if you take back, then after the exchange of rooks, the knight is gone, so you can't do that. black plays move knight b6, attacking this guy, and now white takes on c5. So basically giving up some material. Now you're taking all the pawns, but you do have the two bishops against the rook, and also this b3 pawn is going to be falling very soon. There are way too many pieces around from the white side. So plays b2 you cannot yet take because of your knight, but you can just remove your knight. And after knight c4, knight b2, here comes a very nice move from Carlsen. So to defend these positions, so especially in positions when you have rooks and then the other rook is against two minor pieces, it's always a good idea to exchange one pair of rooks, because the minor pieces are actually weaker without the rook. So very nice move from Carlsen. Here comes rook d8, making sure there is a pin on this file, so you will only be able to disentangle your pieces at the cost of exchanging one pair of rooks. And this is exactly what happens. Now white needs to play bishop c3, this knight has to defend this guy. So for example, taking on c4 would be a huge mistake, because after rook c4 your bishop is gone because you are pinged along the file. So white needs to play bishop c3, but now you can actually liquidate the pieces. So black takes on b2. Now you have to make this intermediate move, and we are actually reaching this ending. So this is the position I actually meant in the beginning, that now we have sort of reversed roles, because Magnus Carlsen has to defend a very unpleasant ending. So usually Carlsen is with the attacking side, he has the slightly better ending and then squeezes out the win against essentially everybody. But now he has the opposite role, he has to defend this position. And actually it is so it is very hard to defend, but objectively probably the position is possible to defend. Yeah, I mean, there's very little evidence from previous games. I actually don't know any game that had this material distribution. And in the official commentary, Peter Leko said that there was some World Championship game, but he was also not sure what the objective evaluation of this is. But maybe for a rapid game, it doesn't matter that much. So let's see how the game goes. So comes rook d1, bishop f1. So first, what white will do is try to improve the position, especially your king. So let's see how this one goes. Black just passes back and forth, and white brings us up the king. So now white puts the bishops in the center, like this, and at some point white will need to push pawns. Look at that black, I mean, it has his h5 pawn, but it does not move any pawns. Make sure that these guys are actually protecting all the squares around, so the white king does not have a target yet. So now comes king f8. It's important to make sure that the white king does not invade immediately. Bishop c5. Always some bothering checks, and moving back and forth. Also, to defend this position, basically what as a defender what you have to reach is 50 moves without pawn moves or exchange any material. So for that reason, Carlsen does not move his pawns, only if it's absolutely mandatory. So far no pawn moves at all. And here he actually does move g6, and the point is that white is going to force this out with bishop f3 anyway. So he plays g6 and then puts the king on g7. And now again comes some maneuvering, and white needs to push something. There's no weakness in the black camp, so you need to do something. Pushes g4. As a defender, you always exchange pawns. You do that, and again just move your rook around. Now it's a nice position for your bishop, but still you have to win this f7 pawn somehow as white to do something. Again, moving back and forth, nothing really happens, but you push up your pawns. So g5. So now it's very clear you have to either win this f7 pawn or somehow weaken the position. So back and forth. And so what's white's plan is, white would like to put the king on d7, e7, bishop to f5, f6, and get this pawn. So you really have to, I mean, you cannot let s-back white do that, because then you are just losing. So now that all the pieces are actually ready to support this king march, now you have the chance to push f6. So there is a few more moves back and forth, and this is your point to push also f6. So now you are managing to exchange one more pawns again. So the whole point is, if you were to take king f6, now bishop e5 seems like winning the rook, but of course you can't do that because you're pinned. So now comes king e6, and you are reaching this position. And How are you going to defend here? Actually, now the computer already says that this is theoretically a draw, but the way to defend is that you try to keep your king around your pawn. So we will actually see that this is not exactly what happens. So now we are moving back and forth. Again, a lot of moves back and forth. But at some point, so now Carlsen's king is on e7, and this pawn needs to be protected. And he actually makes a huge mistake here, because now you just have to bring your king back and then put the king actually on h6. That's the safest you can do. Protect this guy, and then you are going to be able to draw. But instead of this, plays the move rook g1, and after king f3, actually the white king is too quick. So rook c3, bishop e4, but nevertheless, actually, king f7, bishop d5, king e7, we will see that Dubov did not go on further with his plan trying to win this pawn, but will actually give the chance for Carlsen to bring the king back. So here comes bishop e5, rook c1, bishop b6, so moving around, and actually Carlsen doesn't know that he needs to put the king back. But also Dubov does not find a way of all he needs to do actually is just to go forward and try to get this pawn. But Dubov was not sure about this, and he actually was maneuvering for too long back and forth, because now Carlsen actually does find a way to bring his king back, and now there is no way to win the game any further. You are going to put your king on h6, and this is actually it. So the players actually do play the game. I mean, they did play all the way until move 50. I mean, the 50 move rule, like 120 moves or so. I'm not going to bore you with that. They were just moving back and forth. The position is actually not winning anymore because the black king is at the right place. So white was supposed to force the issue while the king was on e7 and try to go further, making sure that you take this pawn. Dubov was maneuvering too much with his bishops, and then the position now is not winning anymore. So yeah, and then as I said, the 50 move rule was ensuring that Carlsen did make the draw. So yeah, this is about actually this game. So very exciting game. Dubov had created just fantastic chances in the middle game, and then Carlsen showed why he is a fantastic endgame player. He defended the position almost perfectly. There was just like a few moves when he put his king to the wrong square, but once he realized he has to put it back again, he defended perfectly, and he did manage to hold this very tough position. So we can actually say that he's not only the best one from the attacking side, but he's also an excellent defender. And this actually makes Carlsen's way to this knockout phase now quite clear. I don't think even if he loses the last one, he's gonna be there, but Dubov has to fight on. So this is about this game, and yeah, so I'm not sure. I might do another video about the last round, or otherwise from the knockout phase. So see you then.